All right, so the plan here is to finish up Daniel tonight. We won't rush it. None of us are in a rush, I don't think. So, um, I think we'll probably get it done, but if we don't, we'll continue and finish it next week. And then, this prophecy that we're dealing with here, we're going to see it goes into the end times, which is why I think, and I think it was Kimberly's suggestion, and it was a good one, that after Daniel, you follow it with Revelation because it naturally follows. Um, and I think what we're going to do for Revelations, because we've done it, I think I haven't done it in like 3 years, but we're going to do an inductive study, which is a little bit of a deeper study. And every time we do it, there's application. And Revelation is a great book to do that with. I think it's chapter 1, verse 3 said, "Blessed are you who read and hear this prophecy." So that's a good enough reason for me to do it. Um, it's considered a blessing to us. So we'll do an inductive study because most people have probably been through a Revelation study. We'll just go a little deeper, a little deeper into without making anything up. All right, we'll just go with what we know, but that's what we'll do. So we left off at verse 21 in chapter 11. He's in the middle of this prophecy, and I know last week was a lot. It was kind of pedantic almost, in that it was just here's what he said, here's when it happened, here's what he said, here's when it happened. But I didn't like doing it that way necessarily, but I think it was important to understand that he truly predicted this, and then it truly happened. All right, so tonight's going to be a little similar, but not quite as bam, 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 bam as last week was. All right, so we left off. Seleucus the third was the last one we left off. Very brief reign, and we are picking up in 21 this vile person that comes to power. Okay, um, verse 21, "And in his place will arise a vile person, to whom they will not give the honor of royalty, but he shall come in peaceably and seize the kingdom by intrigue." All right, now we've talked about this guy before. So after this brief reign of the king of the north, which was fulfilled in Seleucus III, the next king is going to be what the Bible tells us is a vile person. I don't think you need to add anything to that. That's what it is. Um, he isn't going to be recognized as royalty, and he's going to come into power through intrigue, is how Daniel describes it. And this is fulfilled in Antiochus IV. We've talked about him before, Antiochus Epiphanes. He gave himself this title, Epiphanes the Illustrious. Um, he did not come into power legitimately, as Daniel predicted, because everyone suspected, with very good reason, we're not 100% sure, but the people then suspected that in order to gain the throne, he killed the successor. He killed the former king. All right, that he was assassinated. Most people think Antiochus Epiphanes did it. The other potential heir, which was Seleucus's son, Seleucus III's son, was imprisoned in Rome by the orders of Antiochus Epiphanes. All right, so it's kind of convenient. And he did take over by intrigue. He used flattery and smooth words. That's how he dealt with potential adversaries. All right, it's how he made deals. He was famous for selling the position of high priest. He made deals with these people, and that's how he came into power. And here's what's going to happen here: 22 to 27. This man's in charge now, Antiochus IV. With the force of a flood, they will swept away before him and be broken, and also the prince of the covenant. And after the league is made with him, he will act deceitfully, for he shall come up and become strong with a small number of people. He will enter peaceably even unto the richest places of the province, and he will do what his fathers have not done, nor his forefathers. He will disperse among them the plunder, spoils, and riches. He will devise a plan against the strongholds, but only for a time. He will stir up his power and his courage against the king of the south with a great army. And the king of the south will be stirred up to battle with a very great and mighty army, and he will not stand, for they would devise plans against him. Yes, those who eat of the portion of his delicacy shall destroy him. His armies will be swept away, and many shall fall down slain. Both these kings' hearts shall be bent on evil. They will speak lies at the same table, but it will not prosper, for the end will still be at the appointed time. All right? So the angel's telling Daniel here, the new king of the north, Antiochus IV, is going to attempt a covenant with the king of the south, but it's going to be a deceitful covenant. All right? He's going to be lying to him to try to catch him off guard. And he is correct. Antiochus IV did lead an army, but he did not stand. His army was swept away. All right, and this happened in Egypt. It was important because this Antiochus got beat with the help of a new power called Rome. All right, Rome came to the assistance. Um, there was a famous naval battle where the Roman Navy defeated the Navy of Antiochus. There's an interesting story from secular history about this. After the battle on the beach, a Roman general came up to Antiochus Epiphanes and drew a circle around him in the sand with his sword. And he told him, before you step out of the circle, you have to surrender and pay tribute to Rome. He had no choice. All right. And from that moment on, he's basically a Roman pawn. All right. From that moment on, he had no choice. The implication was clear. You're going to surrender, then you can step out, or you're going to stay in this circle forever, most likely dead. Okay. Um, so and then finally it says, those who eat a portion of his delicacies will destroy him. We're not going to go deep into that, but his own counselors betrayed him multiple times. All right, that's what that's referencing. Even the people, look, when you come to power using flattery, bribery, smooth words, you're not going to gain the loyalty of everyone. And the people that sat around his table, his counselors, his advisors, in the end, several of them became traitors. All right, and help turn the battle against him. Now, as you can well imagine, with someone who has the ego of an Antiochus IV, he was not happy about losing. Okay, and he has one place he can take it out, and that's on the Jewish people. Right? And that's what's going to happen next in 28 to 35. A little longer, I'll read it here. While returning to his land with great riches, now look, he lost the battle. All right, but he still, from during the battle, he still had plunder that he sent backwards through the line. All right, so he still was bringing home plunder. Returning to the land with great riches, his heart will be moved against the holy covenants. He will do damage and return to his own land. At the appointed time, he will return and go towards the south, but it will not be like the former or the latter. For ships from Cyprus will come against him. Therefore, he will be grieved and return to rage against the holy covenant and do damage. So he shall return and show regard for those who forsake the holy covenant. And forces will be mustered by him, and they will defile the sanctuary fortress. They will take away the daily sacrifice and place there the abomination of desolation. Those who do wickedly against the covenant, he will corrupt with flattery, but the people who know their God will be strong and carry out with great exploits. And those are the people who understand will instruct many. Yet for many days they will fall by sword and flame, by captivity and plundering. Now, when they fall, they will be aided with a little help, but many will join them by intrigue. And some of those understanding will fall to refine them, purify them, and make them white until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. All right. That's a whole lot of words and rather confusing. But basically what it's saying, it talks about the ships from Cyprus coming against him. That's the Roman Navy. All right. That's the prediction of the prophecy of the Roman Navy coming to beat him. He failed in his invasion of Egypt, so all he had left to do was return home. All right, and he's not in a good mood. That's pretty obvious. So it says he returns with great rage. That's exactly what he does. He does damage and returns to his own land. All right. Jerusalem was already a bit of a mess. The high priest had paid for his position at this point. All right, basically bribed his way into the high priesthood. It was a little bit of a mess. He had already been pushing Greek culture onto the Jewish people. That was one of the things Antiochus did. But now he went a little bit further. All right. Now he desecrated the temple. All right. He set up the abomination of desolation. And what that was, what we know from history that was, in the temple, he established, or he set up, a statue of Zeus. All right. That's what he did. That's going to be important later on. All right. Remember that he set up a statue of Zeus that he wanted the Jewish people to worship, because what did he want them to do? Embrace Greek culture. All right. That was his main goal, get the Jewish people to embrace Greek culture. And we can see that when he got back there and implemented all this, that the Jewish people were split. And I think on a human level, we can understand this. Some of them decided it's better to get along, go along to get along, right? Whether they believed it or not, they were going to pretend. All right. And he used smooth words and flattery and intrigue against them. And some of the people agreed and they forsook their covenant with God and started worshiping Greek gods and embracing Greek culture and everything that goes with it. All right. But look, this is a great line in Daniel for Christians who are persecuted. All right. And it does happen. It's happening right now in Nigeria and multiple places. We know it's happening. The people who know their God will be strong, right? That's big time. If you know who God is, that's what you draw your strength from. All right. And if you draw your strength from knowing your God is great, then you can, in the next line, you can carry out great exploits. All right. So not everybody forsook God and forsook his covenant. Not all Jews did that. All right. Some of them did. Um, but those of them who knew who God was, they basically took a stand for righteousness. And they said, this is what we're gonna do. All right. And this is in face of incredible persecution. All right, we have some estimates from history. During this time, when he attacked Jerusalem and did all the stuff that Daniel's talking about here, the estimate is that he killed 80,000 Jews. That's a lot. All right. People that refused to embrace the culture and embrace what he wanted to embrace, he killed them. 40,000 more were imprisoned. Another 40,000 people were sold as Jewish people were sold as slaves. And he plundered Jerusalem and the temple to the tune of, in modern dollars, $1 billion. All right. He took a lot of plunder from the temple. But if you can stand strong, there's another promise here at the end. Until the time of the end, because it is still for the appointed time. No matter how much terror Antiochus Epiphanes could wreak, no matter how much havoc he could wreak on the Jewish people, it was only for as long as God allowed it. Only for as long as God appointed it. All right. He had a purpose for it. All right. They had to go through it, and he had a purpose for it. And even if they didn't know the purpose, they had this promise that this would come to an end. Eventually, this was going to stop. All right. Now we get into verse 36. And you know how we talked about those near-far prophecies? So far, so good. He's predicting things that have already happened as far as we're concerned. They hadn't happened in Daniel's time, but the future, but past to us. There is a clear shift here, and it's not just me saying, hey, look, it's a shift. We're going to see why it's a shift. We'll be able to tell why there's a shift here in verse 36 to the future, to the Antiochus Epiphanes of the New Testament, which would be the Antichrist. All right. Then the king will do according to his own will. He will exalt and magnify himself above every god, shall speak blasphemies against the God of gods, and will prosper till the wrath has been accomplished, for what has been determined shall be done. All right, so this king is going to blaspheme God and exalt himself above every god. Here's how we know. There's two ways we know the shift. All right. Way number one, the abomination of desolation, the actual one, the real one that Jesus talks about in Jesus's time in Matthew, it's in the future. All right. He talks about future times. When you see this sign, this abomination of desolation, he tells the Jews, flee to the mountaintops. Don't pack your clothes. Don't pack food. Run. Right. Get out of here, because this is going to get bad. So we know that's a future event in the time of Jesus. Also, the reason I said it was important that Antiochus Epiphanes set up a statue of Zeus is because this king is going to demand that who is God? He's going to say, I'm God. All right. Epiphanes, Antiochus IV, did not put himself above other gods. He put the Greek gods above him. This person that we know as the Antichrist is going to put himself above all gods. He is going to be the ultimate authority, the ultimate God. So that is how we know that the historical part for us is over, and we're now looking to the future, because the description of this man doesn't exist in history yet. All right, it's a future event. But again, the same promise from the previous section. He'll prosper till the wrath has been accomplished. In other words, there's a timeline to this also. All right, he's limited by what God has appointed. All right, God's purpose is going to be accomplished, is the way he puts it. So when God's purpose is accomplished, that guy's done too. Okay. Now we get the character of this guy, 37 to 39. He will regard neither the God of his fathers, nor the desire of women, nor regard any God, for he will exalt himself above them all. But in their place, he will honor a God of fortresses, and a God which his fathers did not know. He will honor with gold and silver, with precious stones and pleasant things. Thus he will set against the strongest fortresses with a foreign God, which he shall acknowledge and advance his glory. He will cause them to rule over many and divide the land for gain. This is an interesting passage, and there's a lot of different theories on this. And I'm going to tell you what one of the theories is, and then I'm going to tell you that I don't believe that's the right one. There's another theory that I think flows better with the context. When it says he will regard neither the God of his fathers nor the desire of women. All right. Some people have taken that to be he may be of Jewish descent. All right. But notice it doesn't say the God of our fathers. It says the God of his fathers. All right. It says, nor does he desire the desire of women. All right. That has led some people to say either he has no inclination sexually or he's a homosexual. All right. And I mean, I can't say this right or wrong, but I don't think if you look at the flow and context of this, I think there's a better description for this. And it's not my original thought. Okay. I'm just throwing that out there. I didn't come up with this, but regarding neither the God of his fathers, later it says, nor regarding any gods, he just doesn't care about gods, right? He doesn't care about our God or any God, nor the desire of women. In the flow and context, I found this really interesting. Prior to Jesus, what do you think, and it might be hard to answer, maybe you'll get it. What do you think was the desire of a lot of Jewish women? Any ideas? When I first read it, I didn't know either. I didn't have a clue. They pointed out that in first century and before Judaism, the desire of a lot of Jewish women was to be the mother of the Messiah. All right. So how this would really read is he did not regard God himself, nor did he regard the desire of women, which is Jesus. All right. The Messiah. He didn't regard him either. He didn't care about God. He didn't care about Christ. He didn't care about anything. All right. And I think in the flow and context of this text, that is a pretty good explanation for what they're talking about there. And it also says what he's going to put his faith in. He's going to put his faith in military might. That's where his faith's going to be. The strength of fortresses is how the angel tells Daniel. This is what he's going to put his faith in. He's going to take and hold power with military might. All right. And then we talk about this final conflict. And, this in chapter 12, it's exactly why you do Revelation next. This is because everything that we're going to be talking about in Daniel Hill, Revelation goes into greater detail. All right. 40 to 45. At the time of the end, the king of the south will attack him, and the king of the north will come against him like a whirlwind with chariots, horsemen, many ships. He will enter the countries, overwhelm them, and pass through. He will also enter the glorious land, Israel. And many countries will be overthrown, but those that escape from his hand will be Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon. By the way, Edom, Moab, and the prominent people of Ammon, today, almost all of them live in Jordan. So for whatever reason, if things were to happen next week, Jordan, for some reason, is the one that escapes this somehow. It is how it appears. He will stretch out his hand against the countries. The land of Egypt will not escape. He will have power over treasures of gold and silver and over all the precious things of Egypt. Also, the Libyans and Ethiopians will follow at his heels. But news from the east and the north will trouble him. Therefore, he will go out with great fury to destroy and annihilate many. And he will plant the tents of his palace between the seas and the glorious holy mountain. Yet he will come to his end, and no one will help him. All right. So here we have Daniel, and again, we know what time period this is. Everybody here understands Revelation discusses this, the tribulation. There's a confederation of kings led by this, at least on paper, against on paper, this great leader. And there's going to be a huge battle in and around the Holy Land. All right, that's what Daniel's talking about here. King of the south and king of the north are going to come against him. We don't know who they are exactly. All right, we're not positive. The king of the south could be Egypt. It could represent the Arab community at large whenever this actually happens. The king of the north might be Russia. We just don't know. And to try to posit it is crazy because when this happens, it could be tomorrow. It could be 1,000 years from now, right? In 1,000 years from now, do we really think the world map is going to look the same way as it does today? We know it's not. So to try to figure this out and posit it based on current countries and current locations, it's just a fool's errand. We'd be wasting our time because we can't say anything for sure. Here's what we can say for sure. In the end, there's no hope for the Antichrist. In the end, for all his power and everything he does, there's no hope for him or his followers. In the end, he's going to come to his end. And guess who's going to be there to help him? Nobody. There's going to be no one there to help him. And before, one of the commentators said something about this in a different study I did, which I really liked. Because sometimes we see this as us against them, and God's on our side and he's against you. And this commentator said this that brought me back to reality, that he said, we win in the end, Christians win in the end, not because God is on our side, all right, not because he's on our side, but we win because we as Christians try to do everything we possibly can to be on his side. All right, this is not God choosing sides. This is our job as Christians. We can't say, oh, we're the special ones because we're Christians. Our job is to do the things we're supposed to do so that we are on his side. And then we come out the victors. All right. Because the ones that are on God's side, they're the ones that are going to win that in the end. And the Antichrist is going to come to an inglorious end because of it. All right. Any questions or comments on 11? All right, rolling right into 12 here. Now, I want to say that as we roll into 12, this is not saying, hey, this is what happens next. All right, what Daniel's talking about here is what's happening during this time frame we're talking about. All right, this is still coming. This is during the time frame of the Antichrist. And I'm going to break verse 1 into two pieces here. So the first part of 1a here, at that time, Michael will stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there will be a time of trouble such as never was since never was since there was a nation, even to that time. All right. So again, this is happening during everything he talked about in 11. And Michael's going to stand up. We talked about Michael last week. Michael seems to be the archangel who fights these spiritual battles, but he also seems to have some specific mission as guardian of Israel. All right, he has this mission of guardian of Israel. We see it in Revelation also. So as well as being a great spiritual warrior that literally fights demons and demonic forces, he also has this separate position in protecting Israel, which God appointed for him. And there's going to be a time of great trouble. Now he says, watch over the sons of your people. So who's this trouble going to be for? It's going to be for the Jews, right? He's talking to Daniel. He said, this trouble's coming to the sons of your people. So this is going to be a time of persecution for Israel. And it's going to be a mess. We understand what it is. We call it the tribulation, or the great tribulation. Jeremiah called it the time of Jacob's trouble. That's a really good title for it, actually. And here's what I found fascinating about this. If you think about everything the Jews have been through in history, if you go all the way back to 400 years of slavery in Egypt, you go to being conquered by the Assyrians, being conquered by the Babylonians, having Jerusalem destroyed by the Romans. And then you get up into the 1900s and you talk about the Holocaust itself. The actual Holocaust that some of us, there's people still alive from those days. Which was an unbelievable tragedy. We don't need to go over the numbers to know how bad that was. Then they fought wars, 68, 73, October 7th. They're in conflicts right now. But what struck me the most, I think, is that as bad as the Holocaust was, and we all know how bad it was horrific. This is going to be worse. All right. And that's hard for me to fathom because when you consider the Holocaust and what that did to the Jewish people, this time of trouble is going to be worse for them than the Holocaust was. And Jesus actually talked about this in Matthew 24:21. He said, for then will be a great tribulation, such as not been seen since the beginning of this world until this time, nor ever shall be. All right. We've already seen the shall be. The Holocaust was a shall be. All right. It's already done. It's worse. And that kind of struck me hard this week when I was talking about it. When we get to Revelation, we'll go into more detail. We'll find out why this time is so terrible. It's Revelation gets into, especially chapter 12, gets into some of the things that the devil directs against the Jewish people and gives us more detail. So we'll focus on that when we get to Revelation instead of today. What we need to understand, it's going to be bad, all right, for the people of Israel. Does it surprise us? The nation of Israel and the Jews have always been a target of Satan. That it's always been a target. He tried to prevent the Messiah, right? Anything he could do. He thought he won on the cross. I'm still convinced that Satan thought he was victorious that day. And he's not done. He hasn't given up. And it doesn't surprise me, knowing that God has ordained that everything that's going to be in the future comes through the nation of Israel. It doesn't surprise me that the Satan would make one last attempt to attack them and destroy them. With this horrible time, which is why I broke it into two sections, part B of verse 1, at that time your people will be delivered, everyone that is found written in the book. All right. There's always this, God always promises that, doesn't he? He always says there's going to be some tough times, but redemption's coming. Redemption's coming. He promises again. So despite the absolute horrors of this time, whatever they're going to be, whatever they're going to look like, deliverance is assured. And that shouldn't surprise us either. When God made his covenant with Abraham, did he say that my covenant's between you and your descendants until, let's say, 1940? Now, how long does this covenant last? Forever. It's an everlasting covenant, is how he said it. All right. Age upon age. You really can't say it any better. It's forever. So anyone that thinks they're going to destroy Israel or the Jewish people are in for bad news. You're not going to. There's always going to be a remnant. All right. That's going to survive. Now, I will say this, the promise of deliverance here is not for every single person of Jewish heritage. That's not what the promise says, does it? It says those that are written in the book. All right. And one thing we know is that in the end times, Israel is no longer is going to be known as a nation that believes in Messiah Jesus. All right. Romans tells us that. So there is going to be a large group of Israel, of Jewish people saved. Those are the ones written in the book. Assurance is guaranteed, or deliverance is guaranteed for them. Verse 2, and many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, some to shame and everlasting contempt. All right. Some people think this refers to Israel's resurrection as a nation. I don't see it. Most commentators don't see it either, because it's pretty clear to me. The English is pretty clear here. The Hebrew is pretty clear. The Bible clearly teaches two resurrections, one for the saved and one for the unsaved. That's taught several places in the Bible. But what it does reinforce is this idea of eternal punishment, everlasting contempt. All right, because there is a doctrine. And look, as human beings, we find that hard, right? We find it difficult, the idea difficult. But there is a rising doctrine in the Christian church right now of annihilationism, which is the idea that non-saved are punished for a while and then they are annihilated. Their souls disappear. And there just is no biblical backing for it. It's good. I think what it is it's a theology that feels better than the reality. All right. As human beings, it feels better to think maybe that's true than what the Bible clearly tells us. All right. And I think the best explanation I ever heard for the reason for an eternal hell is that if you are the sacrifice, as a man or a woman, unsaved, if you are the sacrifice for your own sins, you're imperfect and it has to be done over and over and over and over again, eternally. You can never pay for your own sins because you're an imperfect person. Who can pay for your sins? A perfect sacrifice, a perfect one. All right. And that came through who? That came through Jesus as the only way. So Um, it's a tough truth. It's not one that most Christians like, because even our worst enemies, think of the one person you can't stand the most. You would never wish this on them, which is why we should adamantly be witnessing and shouldn't be picky about who we do it to, right? We shouldn't be like, let me get my friends list in order of who I like the most and I'll work my way down, right? We should witness at every opportunity we have, because it appears everything biblically that says this is eternal. All right. The same way that eternal life in heaven is eternal. Many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake. All right. That one interests people because it doesn't say all, it says many. And what's that mean? And I got a perfect answer for you. I have no idea. There is some people, that Hebrew word many sometimes is used as all. So it could be saying all, but that's just us trying to make it fit. All right. We're not sure. Or what most commentators think here is the many is referring to the fact that there will be many who are written in the book. All right. The ones that are going to be delivered that say that their names are written in the book, there'll be many of them. As for the objective, actual answer, I'm not going to pretend that I know it and pass it on, because I don't. All right. I don't know it for sure. Then we get a promise for the righteous people here in verses 3. Those who are wise will shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. All right. If you live in God's wisdom, you're going to shine. And guess when you're really going to shine? You're going to shine like a bright, bright star when you lead others to Christ, right? Think about a star giving off light. You can actually navigate at sea by stars. But what star do most sailors look for when they have to navigate by the stars? The North Star. Why? Because it's the brightest one you can see. All right. That's kind of what he's saying here. Despite all this difficulty come upon Israel, there are going to be people who are wise and will shine. There's going to be people who turn others to righteousness. In other words, they witness to them. All right. And they help convert people, help bring them to the light. You are the shining light, and you're trying to draw them to the shining light. And this is also the righteousness of the firmament, those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. All right, this is a forever and ever also. This is again an eternal claim. The brightness of those isn't going to fade. It's going to last forever. And that is going to be a reward they get for the righteous who invest their lives in very difficult, dangerous times to be the light to other people and to try to witness to them. All right. There is I don't want to say a prize, but there is a reward for that. And Daniel lays it out there. And then
Bill,
verse 4.
Bill,
Yes.
that list you were talking about, how we shouldn't get a list together. I think maybe if we could just start with that list, that would probably be a good start for us.
Actually, you're 100% right, because most of us, and me included, don't even have a list. If you are like me, you're probably, when an opportunity presents itself on a silver platter, I'm going to say something. Okay. I'm trying to get better at that. I was just telling my wife today, I tried to witness to someone today and I failed like a donkey because I got mad. I did what I always do. All right. And I felt like an idiot. And ended up having to suck in all the humility I could into my brain to apologize to this person for the way I acted, and begging them not to let a fool like me turn them away from Jesus because of the way I've told you guys I have this problem and it never goes away. I was wishing the Holy Spirit would just take my phone and throw it against the wall before my fingers would finish, but it didn't happen. But yeah, to start with any list, you're right, Rick. That'd be a good start.
Right. If you can get somebody to turn to righteousness that you really don't like, then everybody else should be easy.
You're 100% right. 100% right. And let's not, we've talked about this before. Let's not disregard the idea of bringing people to light by the way they see you act. We've talked about this before, that you're sometimes the greatest witness you can possibly be is you don't even know it's happening. People are watching you to see how you react to a situation, how you handle something when you're aggravated, when you're bothered, when you're mad. It didn't work for me today. That didn't happen. But people, you're a witness every day. If people know you're a Christian, you're just a witness by the way you walk around and talk. And that can lead people that direction also. I want some of that, is what you hope. Someone that can handle difficulties in life with that kind of grace. Um, if you can pull that off, you're well on the way also.
Hey, Bill,
Yes.
I'm hung up on this line in verse 1 that it's like, whose name shall be found written in the book.
Yeah.
Where that, I mean, there are a certain number of us that are written in the book already, and would the Calvinites use that as their philosophy?
I've never heard a Calvinist try to use that, because most people understand that as the book of life. When you become saved, your name is written, and most people understand it that way. Okay. Now, you are correct. The Calvinists would assume that book's done. Mm-hmm. All right, that's where the Calvinists would assume that book is sitting in heaven. The pen hasn't been picked up in a billion years. Okay, yeah. But
it's like we're chosen or we're not chosen.
Yeah,
it's in the book.
It appears here this is talking about Jews that accept Christ. All right, and those those Jews, now their names are written in the book. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Good. Okay, verse 4. But you, Daniel, shut up the words and seal the book until the time of the end. Many will run to and fro, and knowledge will increase. All right. The implication here, the shut up the words, that implies in the Hebrew that these words need to be kept safely. All right. Preserved until they're needed. And then on top of it, sort of the double sense of authenticating the message and preserving it is to seal the book. All right. So it's preserved and nothing will be taken away from it. Nothing will be added to it. It's preserved because guess what? This message is going to be needed. Now we get to study it today. All right. We get to study it today, but it says until the time of the end. His prophecy has value today, but I'm telling you, and I think I'm not telling you something you don't know. Imagine if the tribulation happens and we're still here, how much more important this prophecy is going to become. All right. In the end times, I personally believe what this is saying is people that would never think to crack the Bible see what's going on around the world, and Daniel is going to get cracked open a lot more than it is today. All right. So seal it up, preserve it. By preserving it, you authenticate the message later when it's really, truly needed. Many are going to run to and fro. This is a characteristic of the end. And a lot of people say, man, we must be getting close. Because the implication here is in the Hebrew that they're running to and fro, gaining knowledge quickly. And do you think anybody in Daniel's time could even comprehend the internet? Do you think anybody in Daniel's time could comprehend AI? They couldn't comprehend it, because I'll tell you, if you want to make a case for the time coming soon, we've certainly entered the age in which it's possible. Because we're now at a place where knowledge is gained rapidly. Knowledge is increasing rapidly because knowledge is available to us 24/7, 365, right? We'll always have access to it. So, most people think, we've kind of entered the realm where now it's possible. All right. Then finally he says, shut up the word, seal the book. Look, Daniel has revealed enough to us that we can understand some of it. And we can go back in history and pick up some of it like we've done tonight and last week. But it's got to be sealed because there's more information coming. There's more trouble coming. The futuristic things he talked about here are in the future. And this book's going to be really important in understanding it. In fact, as we get through here, if you're still around, because look, I'm pre-trib, rapture, that's who I am. I might be wrong, might be mid, might be, who knows. But let's just say it is mid-trib. He's going to tell us basically when certain things happen, you might just pull your calendar out and start marking off the days. If you know Daniel and you know Revelation, you literally could check your calendar off and you know exactly when things are going to happen. All right, verse 5-7. Then I, Daniel, looked, and there stood two others, one on the riverbank and the other on the riverbank. And one said to the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river, how long shall the fulfillment of these wonders be? Then I heard the man clothed in linen, who was above the waters of the river. He held up his right hand and his left hand to heaven and swore by him who lives forever that it will be for a time, times, and half a time. And when the power of the holy people is completely shattered, all these things will be finished. All right. Look, since Daniel 10, verse 4, he's been in this vision on the riverbank. All right. And he returns to that now. He returns us to that. So it all took place. Everything we studied 10 to 12 has taken place on that riverbank as he sees it. He sees these two men on the riverbank, angels, it would appear, one of them actually hovering over the water. All right. One angel asked the other, how long is this going to be? Do you think it was for the benefit of the angel? Or do you think it was the benefit for Daniel and for us? It was for the benefit of Daniel and for us. All right. And he raises his hands to heaven and basically swears a solemn oath on the one who lives forever, a time, times, and half a time. All right. And we all understand what that means. A year, 2 years, and half a year. Right. 3.5 years is what it's going to be. And this 3.5 years is all through the Bible in the prophecies. It's in Daniel 7. It's in Daniel 9. It's in Daniel 12. It's in Revelation 11. It's in Revelation 12. It's in Revelation 13. All right. This 3.5 year period is everywhere. And so we're dealing with, if you remember back to Daniel's 70 weeks, we're dealing with the 70th week here, basically. Okay. And the people of Israel are going to seem completely crushed as things end. But at that time, the Messiah, whom a lot of them never trusted in the past, but now will trust in him, is going to return. And he's going to return this time as the Messiah, sort of what they were expecting the first time. All right. He's coming to deliver them this time. All right. But this time, the Jews that he's delivering are believers in him. All right. They'll have gotten to that point where they understand. Verse 8. Although I heard, I did not understand. Then I said, my Lord, what will be the end of these things? Thank goodness Daniel said that. I'm thinking, my goodness, if Daniel can't understand it, no wonder we struggle. No wonder we spend so much time trying to figure this out. All right. Because Daniel himself, the beloved of God, who all this was handed to, literally just says to the angel, I don't get it. I don't understand. All right. I really appreciate that about Daniel. I find it comforting. All right. That I'm not as dumb as I think I am when I'm trying to figure all this out. And he's asking this question. Most commentators think he asked this question because we're talking about who? Talking about the Jewish people. All right. His people. And I think at this point, hearing all this, he's very, very anxious. You know, if we heard a prophecy like this about things that were going to happen to our future family, we would feel the same way. Extremely anxious. We want to know, how long is this going to last? And I know we got redemption in the end, but when's it going to end? How long is it going to be? Verses 9 to 13. And he said, go your way, Daniel, for the words are closed up and sealed to the time of the end. Well, that's not really the answer I wanted. Probably not what Daniel wanted either. All right. But this is the deal. Many will be purified, made white and refined, but the wicked will do wickedly. And some of the wicked will understand, but the wise will definitely understand. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation is set up, there will be 1,290 days. Blessed is he who waits and comes to the 1,335 days. But you go your way to the end, for you will rest and will arise to your inheritance at the end of the days. Now, here's what I'd be thinking. I tried to get clarification, and you've told me 1,260 days, 1,290 days, and 1,335 days. All right. I don't feel like I have clarification here. The command to go your way wasn't a command to go away physically. What he's saying is, Daniel, these things are sealed, and we need you to take a mental departure from questioning, from asking the questions, because they've been sealed at this point. More details are going to be revealed later, but as of right now, Daniel has to be content with what God has revealed to him so far and what he can understand of what God has revealed to him so far. All right. Because the revealing of these things will not come until the time of the end. That's when everything's going to make total sense. All right. At the time of the end, you'll be able to read through. Just let me put it this way. Just like we can read the first part of his prophecy and say, hey, that was Seleucus. Hey, that was Antiochus. We can get it now. All right. At the time of the end, this will all make more sense to everybody. But until then, there's a sense that these prophecies are closed up and they're sealed because there's a future purpose for them. Many will be purified and made white and refined. All right. So this is another prediction for what was future to Daniel, because this kind of purification is only even possible after the finished work of Jesus on the cross. That's the only time it's even possible. So this is future to Daniel also. He says the wicked will do wickedly. And look, you could say, well, that's happening right now, right? The wicked are doing wickedly right now, but this is sort of to show you how bad it's going to be in the actual end times. The wickedness is going to abound even more than it does in the world today. All right. And it's pretty bountiful today, right? It's bountiful today, without a doubt. But it's going to abound even more then with the Antichrist and his world government. However, it's worth it because an innumerable, we don't even know exactly how many, multitude is going to be saved in the end. Through that experience, many, many people are going to be saved and be able to spend eternity in heaven because of what happens in these end times. And now he says, from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away and the abomination of desolation to 1,290 days. All right. Revelation says 1,260 days, which is exactly 3.5 years, because a prophetic year is 360 days. All right. So that says 1,260 years. Jesus tells us in Matthew 24:15 that he mentions this prophecy. He says, Daniel's prophecy, the abomination of desolation, when you see that happen, that is going to mark the day that you can start checking off your calendar. All right. 1,260 days. So we don't know what the relationship is between 3.5 years, the 1,260 days, the 1,290 days, which is another month longer, and 1,335 days, which is 45 days after that. All right. And anybody that tells you that they know exactly what that means, they're lying, because you can't. There's nothing in the Bible that tells exactly what that means. You can posit it. You can theorize what it could be. And let me pull this. The most accurate one I found, that, well, that's a dumb word to use, because if we don't know it's true, I don't know it's accurate. The most plausible, let me put it that way. Most plausible is that, now, the 1,260 days begins when the Antichrist breaks the treaty. He goes into the temple, the third temple, the new temple that he built, and declares himself God. All right, that is the abomination of desolation. 1,260 days from then, that's where you can check your calendar. Christ will return and defeat him at what we call Armageddon. All right, the Battle of Armageddon, 30 days. Christ is then going to set, what's coming after that? Well, the millennium's coming. All right. And some commentators have posited that the next 30 days might be just Jesus setting up his earthly kingdom. All right. Because we know that he's going to set up in Jerusalem, all the nations that come serve him. And it's a time frame that is possibly explained in the next 30 days. Now, could Jesus do it in 30 seconds? Well, of course he could. But you're dealing with human beings, and there's probably things he needs to do and get human beings accustomed to how things are going to be now, because this is going on for 1,000 days, for 1,000 years. So maybe 30 days after the second half of the tribulation, we don't even know. Some people think that 30 days is also, you have to assume during the tribulation that Israel is going to be in really bad shape physically. The buildings, the structures, it's going to be bad. There's a major war happening, a world war happening, such as we've never seen. Maybe that's when Israel's rebuilt. But again, we're guessing. And then on top of that, the angel mentions the 1,335 days, which is 45 days later. So something else is going to happen. Daniel doesn't say what's going to happen, but he says those who remain until the end of the angel said, those who remain until the end of the 1,335 days, all right, will be blessed. Most commentators think that means if you make it to that point, 75 days after the end of the tribulation, it's 30 plus 45, 75 days, that is the official ushering in of the millennial kingdom. And I think we can understand how someone would feel blessed being ushered into that kingdom. What takes place during the 35 days? We don't know. All right. Some people point to Matthew chapter 25, where it talks about the judgment of the Gentile nations. if you want to read about that and see if it fits, it's chapter 25 of Matthew, verses 31 to 46. It's the judgment of the sheep and goats. I think you'll recognize the story. That's where you'll find it. And some people think maybe that's what happens. But look, the blessing, they think, if you survive the tribulation, and if it's true that that 45 days is the sheep and the goat judgment, that you will be blessed because you'll be entering the official millennium kingdom, 1,000 years of Christ reigning on earth. I can't think of a better blessing, right? That's about as good as it gets. So it kind of fits. But I want to be really specific. That is just theories. There's nothing that you can find in the Bible that tells us what happens between 1,260 and 1,290 days and 1,290 to 1,335. We're not sure. I can't, that drives me nuts. So I have to come up with some theories, some ideas, and that's what the best I found as far as possible fitting in biblically with Matthew chapter 25. So, all right.
We can refer to that, Bill. We can just refer to that as the grace period.
Yeah, 75 days of grace before the millennial kingdom. All right. Are there any questions or comments? It's a rough book. And so then we'll go to the easy revelation, it's because we're geniuses. We're gluttons for punishment. But yeah, I started Revelation today again and looked some old notes and just noticed verse 3. Everybody read verse 3 tonight. It just says it's important to study Revelation. It's important to study it and read it and hear it. Chapter 1, verse 3 tells us that. So we'll get that going next week if that's cool. All right. Rick, do you mind leading this out so I can shut my yap?
I will do it.
Thank you.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you again for bringing us all together and for the study that Bill does, bringing the word to us. And we all know that at the end, we're going to receive our inheritance. But we're just asking right now for the strength and wisdom that you can give us to witness gently, helping us bring our friends and our enemies to righteousness, which will allow them to either have eternal life or have eternal shame. So we just ask for that intestinal fortitude that can just help us to have the strength and be bold, just to tell them about you, tell them about Jesus, how he gave his life for us. And I don't think any of us really want to see anyone have eternal shame. I think our goal would to help them with eternal life. And we always think there's tomorrow, but we need to have that sense of urgency because each day we do get closer. When we ask all of this in Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you all for showing up as usual. It makes it a lot nicer to do it when people actually show up. So thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank
you very much.
Bill. Now, next week we start Revelation, right?
Right away. I got to go right into it. Yep. With another beloved of God, John. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for all your study, Bill. Really.
I think I told Rick this before that I think I get the most benefit because I study more than I would if we didn't do this, and that's good for me. So I appreciate that. It's worth it.
I don't think you do, Bill, but because you make short shrift of what there's a lot of stuff in here.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
It is. Revelation is going to be a ball. Now I've done Revelation a couple times, but I've never done it inductively. So it's going to be an interesting. I decided to change it up a little bit and get a little deeper. So see how it goes. I'm excited to get going. So.
I think I was 18 when I read Revelation, one and only time. So just a couple of years ago.
It is one fascinating book. Yeah, 18. I mean, like 6 years ago. That's
I don't know what y'all are laughing about.
It was 6, 7 years ago. We get it. Yeah.
So what you're saying is we may get through 4 or 5 verses each week.
I'll put it this way. I think it'll be better than that, but we are definitely not rushing it. And sometimes I push a little bit to finish a chapter, things like we're not going to do that. Inductively, you just go, and when your time's up, you stop. Because you're not going to miss details simply because you're up against a time crunch. So that's how we'll handle it. Some chapters will go a little quicker. Some will really drag, but I hope they aren't boring drag. I hope that they're dragging because they're so fascinating with the details. And that's what we'll try. See how it goes.
Wait.
All right.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Everybody have a good rest of your week.
Yep,
Okay, you
we'll see
too.
y'all.
You
Okay.
too.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Bye.